Ever since Godzilla made his first appearance in the 1954 Ishiro Honda film, he has become a pop culture icon whose popularity transcends across cultures and generations. This kaiju has appeared in films, comics, mangas, and every form of media imaginable, where his character is introduced as some variation of his original character. Today, we shall explore every variant of Godzilla across anime, cartoons, and comic books, and tell you all about their key characteristics. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. Godzilla's marvelous first appearance in Marvel Comics, 1977 to 1979. In Marvel Comics, Godzilla's origins could be traced to the Pacific nuclear bomb test in the 1950s. Dr. Yuriko Takiguchi conducted extensive research on this monster after it first attacked Tokyo in 1956, and later records indicated that it was trapped within the ice on the coast of Alaska. After he broke free, Takiguchi's team, also known as the Godzilla Squad, tried to trap him and put an end to his reign of terror in Alaska, but with very little success. The kaiju then traveled down the Pacific coast and ended up in Washington state before making his appearance known in Seattle and San Francisco. Across the comics, Godzilla has terrorized several states in the US before being captured by his rival, Dr. Demonicus. This variant had been captured by military forces on numerous occasions, and he was known for having a near impenetrable hide that could withstand ballistic weapon attacks. His hide remained unaffected by Thor's lightning, and in case of injuries, the kaiju could regenerate wounds at a speedy pace. His intelligence was also commendable, and he had managed to outwit highly trained shield agents. However, Godzilla's most powerful weapon was his ability to breathe an atomic fire that could cause large-scale nuclear explosions, capable of destroying entire cities and forests. Hanna-Barbera's light green variant of Godzilla, 1978 to 1979. In 1978, Doug Wildey produced an animated Godzilla show for Hanna-Barbera Productions in collaboration with Toho and Benedict Pictures Corp. Also known as the Godzilla Power Hour, the show aired on NBC for an hour on Saturday mornings and went on for 2 seasons until 1979. It followed Godzilla's adventures with his cousin Godzuki as they worked in close proximity with scientists to defeat monsters. These scientists worked on board the research vessel Calico and had the ability to summon Godzilla in dire situations where they needed supernatural aid to defeat malevolent entities. While they had a special communicator to get Godzilla's attention, Godzuki resided on board the vessel and had a special call to summon his older cousin in case their device malfunctioned. In this series, Godzilla has light green skin with deep green dorsal fins that sprout from the top of his head and extend to the tip of his tail. He did have the ability to breathe fire, but these fiery breaths were different from his trademark blue atomic breath in the original films. He was also the tallest variant of this character until Godzilla Earth introduction in 2017, and Hanna-Barbera's Godzilla stood tall at about 400 feet. The King of the Monsters, Godzilla Dark Horse Comics, 1995 to 1996. Also known as the King of the Monsters, this variant of Godzilla appeared in a comic series published by Dark Horse Comics between 1995 and 1996. The story revolved around Godzilla's encounters with the Fantastic Four-inspired G-Force team, which consisted of characters such as Professor Yoshiwara and Burton Helzer. Since Dark Horse Comics failed to acquire the license for Toho's other kaiju, the writers had to invent an entirely new army of monsters that would stir up trouble for our titular protagonist. Sadly, the comic did not sell well, and Dark Horse Comics dropped it even though they had plans to introduce evil monsters created by a mad scientist named Dr. Yamazaki. This variant of Godzilla was inspired by his Heisei incarnation, who appears to be a brooding, mysterious force of nature. He is not entirely benevolent, and his battles are often described as a face-off between two forces of evil, of which Godzilla is the less harmful one. the cute chibi-style animated variant from Godzilla Land. Toho Company Limited created Godzilla Land as a children's television series with a comedy twist on the kaiju's adventures. Since the show's target audience was children, the production company opted for a chibi-style animation to attract views. This animation style is characterized by giant faces and distinct facial expressions that make the character seem cuter, and Godzilla Land's variant was regarded as one of the most adorable versions of Godzilla. The show introduced Godzilla as a young child living on an island surrounded by other kaiju-inspired children like him. When Godzilla imprinted on a human, Godzilla The Series, 1998 to 2000. Developed by Jeff Kline and Richard Reynes in 1978, this animated version of Godzilla picked up right where the 1998 Godzilla film left off. The series followed a research team led by Dr. Nick Katopoulos as they faced gigantic kaiju monsters and came across a Godzilla egg just as it was about to hatch. Since Dr. Nick was at the scene at the time of its hatching, the Godzilla imprinted on him and became a key weapon whose presence summoned other mutated characters towards Dr. Nick's team. While Godzilla's presence only meant more trouble for Nick, the kaiju viewed him as a parent and was very protective of him. He could see Nick's distress and even followed Nick on his adventures to keep him safe. His relationship with Nick was quite the highlight of the series, and Nick reciprocated Godzilla's concern by also looking out for him and convincing his team that he is more beneficial to them alive than dead. Godzilla's character was voiced by Frank Welker, who also voiced this monster in the 1988 film that inspired this series. While Godzilla had the same iconic atomic breath power in this series, he differed from other variants in terms of his reproductive abilities. Even though he was born through asexual reproduction, Godzilla himself seemed to lack this ability. Godzilla's Journey to Hell in Godzilla Unnatural Disasters, 2021. Published by IDW Comics in 2021, Godzilla Unnatural Disasters was a compendium consisting of 3 comic miniseries revolving around this kaiju. Godzilla had a deadly appearance in these comics, with a tall, towering body and skin covered in deep red-black scales. The story heavily relied on the kaiju in Godzilla's Rogue Gallery and featured monsters such as Anguirus, Rodan, Titanosaurus, Kumonga, and Hedorah. After crossing these obstacles, Godzilla faces his greatest adversary in the depths of the underworld and emerges victorious. The unrivaled king of monsters from Godzilla World of Monsters. Like the title suggests, Godzilla World of Monsters is a tale of monsters who rule the world across 3 graphic novels titled Gangsters and Goliaths, Cataclysm, and Oblivion. The first story follows Detective Makoto Sato as he takes a trip to the criminal underworld, while the second story involves a monster apocalypse that nearly destroys humankind. Finally, the third tale introduces us to the mighty Godzilla, who has assumed his role as the king of monsters. When a scientist creates a portal to the monster dimension, he finds himself facing Godzilla, and all hope is lost until a baby kaiju almost saves the day. When Godzilla terrorized a soldier for nearly half a century, Godzilla HalfCentury War. Written by James Stokoe in 2012, Godzilla HalfCentury War focused on Oda Murakami's life as he kept running into the kaiju for nearly 50 years, spanning from 1954 to 2002. Murakami first ran afoul of Godzilla when he first attacked Tokyo, and later faced him in Vietnam, Ghana, and Bombay, before a final confrontation in Antarctica in 2021. This variant of Godzilla was quite a dangerous monster, but the storyline also showed him face a worthy opponent in the form of an obsessive soldier, Murakami. IDW Comics' twist on Godzilla in Godzilla Rivals Round 1. Published by IDW Comics, Godzilla Rivals was a 5-part series, with each issue focusing on Godzilla's rivalry with a new rival. It kickstarted with a fight against Hedorah, where Godzilla smashed his way through New York City to find a scientist who could bring the madness to an end. When he defeated Hedorah, a new kaiju awakened in Lake Akita, and Godzilla continued to face and defeat the likes of Singura and Mechagodzilla. a surprising crossover between Godzilla and the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. Released in 2022, Godzilla vs. the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers was a crossover between Boom Studios and IDW's modern comic book character. The story follows Rita Repulsa as she uses an ancient artifact to travel to a universe without Power Rangers, but somehow ends up in a world filled with aliens, kaiju, and the mighty king of the monsters, Godzilla. While Godzilla found himself facing Rita Repulsa's army of creatures, the Power Rangers also traveled to his dimension. As the story unfurls, the Dinozords face this variant in an epic showdown before a bystander tells the Rangers that Godzilla is a native. Since Godzilla lacked the ability to speak for himself, the Power Rangers assumed that he was one of Rita's creations, and it took them a while to figure out that Rita was bothering Godzilla. Rita had tried to mind control him, but the kaiju's mental fortitude was strong enough to resist her attack. An environment-conscious variant from Godzilla Monsters and Protectors Rise Up. Produced by IDW Comics, Godzilla Monsters and Protectors Rise Up was a comic miniseries revolving around Godzilla and an 8th grader named Cedric Nishimura. When the Lineval Corporation wrecked the environment with their industry functions, Godzilla retaliated by launching an attack on humankind. In this scenario, Cedric's classmates paired up with the Shobijin of Infant Island to bring Godzilla under control. In the meantime, the Lineval Corporation created a genetically engineered plant hybrid clone named Biolante to deal with the kaiju. After the success of this comic series, IDW released a sequel and finally concluded the series with a one-shot named Godzilla Monsters and Protectors Summer Smash in 2023. A sequel to Rise Up Godzilla Monsters and Protectors All Hail the King. After the success of Rise Up Comics, IDW released a sequel named Godzilla Monsters and Protectors All Hail the King. The story follows Cedric Nishimura as he tries to create vlogs with Godzilla after the kaiju disappears for a long time. Cedric seeks him out after his fight with Biolante, especially when his classmates give him a hard time for lying about having seen Godzilla. While Cedric hoped to gather some evidence of his existence, he stumbled across a conspiracy surrounding the Exilians. The Exilians were an alien force working alongside the Lineval Corporation, and they ended up invading a three-headed evil King Ghidorah. They had hoped to conquer Earth, but their attempts awakened this ancient king who had been resting in a volcanic tomb. Godzilla soon faced King Ghidorah and realized he was in no position to defeat him alone. Thankfully, Cedric's classmate has a connection to King Caesar, who is also the guardian kaiju of Okinawa. This proves to be of great help to Godzilla, who uses this connection to get rid of King Ghidorah. The monstrous awakening of Godzilla in Legendary Comics. Appearing as a part of the Monsterverse, this variant of Godzilla appeared in several comic series published by Legendary Comics. He was one of the monsters unleashed by humanity during the Atomic Age, and was considered a life form beyond one's imagination. He first appeared in Godzilla Awakening in 2014, followed by Godzilla King of the Monsters and Godzilla Dominion. The Supreme Ruler of Earth, also known as Godzilla Earth. First appearing in the 2017 Godzilla film, Godzilla Earth is an incarnation of the kaiju from the 2030s. In this era, humankind has endured several attacks by kaiju for over 25 years before Godzilla Earth made his appearance known. In no time, he establishes himself as the most powerful kaiju and even emerges victorious in every encounter with humankind. He further defeats various alien races who offer help to humans, and by 2048, humanity accepts that Godzilla cannot be defeated. Humans then decided to flee to a planet in the Cetus constellation, but they could not sustain themselves there, and a few humans returned to Earth to find that over 20,000 years had passed. Moreover, Earth had drastically changed over time, and a new ecosystem had sprung around the titular kaiju, who reigned as the supreme being of Earth. Godzilla Earth had his origins in plant life, and it was said that his creation was brought about by the natural selection on Earth. He had evolved after incorporating characteristics of plants and other organisms, thereby gaining regenerative abilities, heat resistance, and enhanced durability. He was aggressive in nature and quite hostile towards humans and monsters alike. He did seem to be quite protective of Earth, and his first instinct was to protect his home planet from any incoming threats, even if the so-called threat was humans. an evolutionary variant of Godzilla from Godzilla Singular Point 2021. Godzilla Singular Point was a 2021 anime series revolving around a variant known as Godzilla Aquatilis, which later evolved into Godzilla Amphibia. Over time, this variant underwent several stages and transformed into Godzilla Terrestris before finally assuming his final form, Godzilla Ultima. Also known as Gojira in a legend about sea monsters, this kaiju was prophesized to bring destruction to the world after staining the seas red. He first appeared when a submarine crew stumbled across him under the sea and later followed a crew to Tokyo Bay. It was at this point that he transformed into Godzilla Amphibia after stepping out of the water for the first time. Soon, he had wreaked havoc all over the city as Godzilla Terrestris, and he even killed a gigantic Rodan before evolving into his ultimate form. This variant of Godzilla had numerous abilities besides his iconic atomic breath and had undergone several transformations. Among other things, he could create tentacles out of his blood to capture his opponents or catch any bombs that came his way. He could also regenerate lost limbs, breathe a flammable ice vapor, and swim at a speed of at least 50 knots. Godzilla The Series. One would be pleasantly surprised by Godzilla The Series. As a fan of the original Godzilla franchise, viewers likely went in with low expectations after the disappointing 1998 American film. However, the animated series redeems the new Godzilla design and character. The show captures the spirit of battling giant monsters that makes Godzilla enjoyable, with imaginative creature designs and epic fight scenes every episode. While aimed at kids, the series doesn't shy away from mass destruction and consequences in the kaiju battles. The characters are likable, especially the brave and smart female members of HEAT. Overall, Godzilla The Series is a must-watch for old-school fans, with homages to previous films that would make them smile with nostalgia. This is the follow-up the 1998 film deserved. Marvelous verdict. To sum it up, Godzilla has certainly revolutionized the appearance of kaiju in mainstream pop culture, and he is one of those characters that has passed the test of time with flying colors. His character has enough potential to stay relevant despite changing times, and every single variant of Godzilla has something new and interesting to offer. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one, and be safe. Thanks, everyone.